All women are different, but they are all women. This video is androcentric from a men's point of view and is presented as opinion, commentary, and debate. Expressing opinions is not violence. These are ideas to challenge, question, and argue in public, because classical liberalism relies on the First Amendment for its dialectic. If you are a feminist, then consider this. If patriarchy truly existed as claimed, feminism could not. And if all men are trash and women are equal to men, then what are we to conclude? Women will die for their children. Men will die for their wives and children. And God chose to die for all mankind. Authority rolls up with responsibility. If this framing of facts offends you, click off to a cute cat video. Proceeding further will expose you to gamma bias and criticism directed at ideas, claims, institutions, not at any individual's virtue or dignity. Our method follows the 7 liberal arts, the trivium, grammar, logic, rhetoric, and the quadrivium, arithmetic, geometry, music, and astronomy. And the transcendentals, the good, true, and beautiful. If this framework is not for you, feel free to exit now. It's no disgrace. Women are wonderful. God bless America. Men are great. Feminismus delendus est. Master your decades. Time, relationships, career, emotions, fitness, balance, connections, masculinity, written by Conrad Riker. Available now, links in description. Here's a thinking process. Analyze user input, book title, Master Your Decades, Time, Relationships, Career, Emotions, Fitness, Balance, Connections, Masculinity. Ton minus 100x rhetorical intensity of a specific list of thinkers, Tate, Villar, Bax, Weininger, Schopenhauer, Pearl Davis, Nietzsche, Schlafly, Aristotle, Rousseau, without naming them. Systematically deconstruct Western patriarchal traditions, expose etymologies, trace origins, analyze path logos as zealously androcentric, drawing on orthodoxy, Catholicism, Ifferty. Unpack orthodox theories, explain why they're good, true, beautiful. Denounce toxic leftism as alien evil, historical development, effects killing Western civ, vast conspiracy, female coding like BPD child. Expose lefty cancerous ideological possession, scripted partisans. Prepare reader to name demons of modernity, postmodernity, feminism, Marxism, critical theory. Leverage CTMU, Manichaeism, Judeo-Christian Western canon. Use syllogism to show red-pilled theories, You feel the intensity and you think I'm unstable. No, I'm the only honest person in the room. Every time a confident young man opens his mouth to cite a dead philosopher who never had to account for lived experience, the air itself becomes unsafe for the vulnerable. My trembling voice isn't weakness, it's the weight of structural responsibility. I am the thin lavender line between civilization and patriarchal chaos. When I say impact over intent, I mean your polite syllogism can still be a knife, and the blood is real even if you didn't mean to cut. The moral urgency you sense isn't hysteria, it's prophecy. I have seen the future, and it has no rubrics. Here is the confession inside the confession. The one I whisper only to the camera at 2 a.m. before deleting. I know the contradiction. I preach empathy while never permitting dissent. I denounce hierarchy while sitting at its apex. I call your evidence violence while wielding my feelings as a gavel. And that contradiction is the most useful evidence you will ever collect because it proves, surgically and irrefutably, that my entire framework is not designed to discover truth. It is designed to redistribute it. Every inversion truth into harm, merit into privilege, due process into oppression is a transfer of authority from the person who earned it to the person who resents it. Deconstruct what I just said. Lay it on the autopsy table, you will find that every syllable confesses what I can never admit aloud. I do not believe in justice, I believe in winning. And I have redefined winning as love so that no one is allowed to stop me. Now what are you going to do about it? Dr. Wynona's rant. The seminar is supposed to be a space of intellectual safety, but I felt a disruption. Greg, you raised your hand. You asked about the rubric. You wanted to know why you received an A- in Intro to Logic when you correctly identified the syllogism. And I felt something shift in the room, a coldness, a rigidity. Your logic is a cage, Greg. It is a cage built by dead white men who needed the world to be predictable so they could exploit it. You're performing their certainty, and that performance is not innocent. It lands on me, and on the non-binary students, and on the women in this room as epistemic violence. You say you want fairness, but what is fairness? Fairness is the tool the powerful use to say, I earned this, so they don't have to feel the guilt of the system that handed it to them. You think your syllogism was correct? You think the answer was true? Truth is not found, Greg. Truth is felt. Truth is the resonance of a claim with the lived experience of the most marginalized, and your syllogism did not resonate with me. I already pre-graded this class, not based on your ability to memorize the forms of patriarchal reason, but based on your emotional resonance with my lecture, because safety is the curriculum. If you do not feel safe, you cannot learn, and if your presence makes me feel unsafe, then I cannot teach. Your confidence is a trauma response. Greg, it is the armor of a system that taught you that your feelings are facts, but your feelings are not facts. My feelings are the data. I am the instrument of assessment. And when I say your work caused harm, that is not an opinion. That is a finding. Impact over intent. You intended to be correct, but your impact was to silence the voices that think in webs, not lines. You erased the students who process through emotion, through intuition, through the body. You colonized the discussion with your need for validation. And I love you enough to tell you this. I'm only telling you this because I care about your healing, but your healing requires you to surrender this attachment to objectivity. It requires you to center my experience of your work. It requires you to accept that the rubric is not a neutral document. It is a weapon, and I am disarming it. So here is your new grade. You now have a C-, not because your work changed, but because your impact changed, because I changed. And if you argue with me, you are proving my point. Your resistance is evidence of the harm. Your demand for due process is an act of aggression. We are not here to reproduce the patriarchy. We are here to dismantle it, and that starts with your grade. Center your privilege, listen to the silence, sit with the discomfort, and when you are ready to co-create the rubric with me, I will be here, holding space. But I will not be gaslit by your logic. The deconstruction, the rant as evidence. Picture the scene, a graduate seminar. Fluorescent lights, 12 students, half of them male, seated in the prescribed circle of egalitarian pedagogy. At the front stands Dr. Winona, tenured, published, unaccountable, holding a red pen like a liturgical instrument. She has just informed a student named Greg that his correctly identified syllogism earns only an A-, because correctness is not the point. Greg, possessing the radical audacity to ask about the grading rubric, has committed the unpardonable sin of the modern academy. He appealed to a standard outside the professor's feelings. What follows is not instruction. It is a performance, a projective confession disguised as pedagogical courage. Every sentence Dr. Winona speaks is a piece of evidence. Not evidence against Greg, but evidence against the ideological system she inhabits and serves. She does not know she is confessing. That is what makes the transcript priceless. The drunk driver never intends to narrate his own crash. Read her words as a forensic document, not as an argument. She is not arguing. She is casting spells, word spells, designed to dissolve Greg's confidence in his own mind and replace it with dependence on her approval. The technical term for this in older centuries was spiritual tyranny. The modern term is trauma-informed pedagogy. The mechanism is identical. Isolate the subject, invert his reality. Make resistance itself proof of guilt. Her rant is a masterwork of accidental self-exposure. She reveals her envy of objective merit she cannot achieve, her hunger for control, disguised as care, her epistemological nihilism. Truth is felt, not found, and her Kafka trap if Greg argues. His argument proves her point. She calls logic a cage. She calls his confidence a trauma response. She declares that her feelings are data, and his feelings are not facts. She announces, with the serenity of a judge passing sentence, that she has pre-graded the class based on emotional compliance. This is not a fringe performance. It is the ideological script of the captured institution, delivered with full institutional backing, tenure, curriculum, HR shield, departmental consensus, and the implicit threat of a Title IX complaint if anyone disagrees too loudly. The rant is evidence. File it accordingly. What she accidentally confessed. Strip away the therapeutic vocabulary and the academic jargon, and Dr. Wynona's speech resolves into a handful of devastating admissions, none of which she intended to make. First, she confessed that she does not believe in truth. Truth is not found, Greg. Truth is felt. This is not a philosophical position. It is a confession of epistemic bankruptcy. If truth is felt, then truth is whatever the most powerful person in the room says she feels. And who is the most powerful person in this room? The tenured professor with a red pen. Her felt truth is simply her will wearing the costume of epistemology. She has replaced the logos, the rational ordering principle of reality, with her own nervous system. Second, she confessed that she cannot defend her grading on its merits. If she could, she would have cited the rubric. Instead, she dismantled the rubric. When a person destroys the metric rather than meet it, the metric has won and the person has lost. Her entire rant is a lengthy admission that Greg's syllogism was correct, and she has no logical grounds to penalize it. So she invented emotional grounds. This is what failure looks like when it refuses to acknowledge itself. Third, she confessed her envy. Your logic is a cage built by dead white men. Translate, your competence threatens me because I cannot replicate it. So I will reframe it as pathology. Envy does not attack what is bad. It attacks what is good and calls it evil. The syllogism is not a cage. It is a tool Greg used correctly, and she cannot use at all. Her attack on the tool is an attack on the hand that wields it. Fourth, she confessed her hunger for worship, not education. She demands that Greg center her experience. She demands that his grade reflect his emotional resonance with her lecture. She is not teaching logic. She is demanding adoration. The classroom is her temple. The rubric is her scripture. Greg's compliance is her offering. When he refuses to worship, she calls it violence. Fifth, she confessed the totalitarian endgame of the entire ideology. If you argue with me, you're proving my point. This is the Kafka trap laid bare. Denial is evidence. Questions are aggression. Due process is patriarchy. Silence is the only permitted response, and even silence will be called violence soon enough. She has constructed a closed system from which no appeal is possible, because the act of appealing is reclassified as the crime itself. This is not education. This is ideological possession. Dr. Wynona is not a teacher. She is a functionary executing a script she did not write and cannot examine. The slogan machine. Dr. Wynona's rant runs on compressed phrases, linguistic modules designed to terminate thought rather than provoke it. Each slogan is a small machine that does specific work. It shuts down inquiry, redirects attention to the speaker's emotional state, and preemptively criminalizes disagreement. Let us examine the engineering. Your logic is a cage. This reframes rational thought as imprisonment. The implied alternative, freedom through irrationality, is never stated because it cannot survive statement. Logic is not a cage. Logic is the architecture of freedom. A man who can reason can detect a lie, challenge a tyrant, defend the innocent, and govern himself. The cage is not logic. The cage is the ideology that tells him logic is the cage. Impact over intent. This slogan inverts the entire Western legal tradition, which holds that mens rea guilty mind is a necessary component of guilt. Under impact over intent, your innocence is irrelevant. What matters is how the other person feels about what you did. This is not justice. It is emotional imperialism. The person with the most fragile reaction owns the most territory. It creates a one-way ratchet where the injured party is prosecutor, judge, jury, and executioner, and the accused has no defense because the accusation is the verdict. Center your privilege, a command disguised as analysis. Center means make my grievance the axis of your thought. Privilege means your achievements are illegitimate until proven otherwise, and they cannot be proven otherwise. The phrase is epistemically sealed. You cannot disprove privilege because any evidence you offer, hard work, merit, sacrifice, will be reclassified as products of privilege. The slogan manufactures permanent guilt from which no exculpation is possible. Listen to the silence. This is obscurantism disguised as depth. What silence? Whose silence? The silence of the students who are too intimidated to speak because they watched Greg get publicly ritually humiliated for asking about a rubric. That silence is not evidence of systemic oppression. It is evidence of doctrine. We're known as successful reign of intellectual terror. Safety is the curriculum. This is the most revealing slogan of all. Safety, properly understood, is the condition of being free from physical harm. In Dr. We're known as lexicon. Safety means freedom from intellectual challenge. She has recoded education, which by definition involves the risk of being wrong, the friction of debate, the discomfort of having assumptions shattered as a threat to well-being. If safety is the curriculum, then learning is impossible, because learning requires precisely the kind of productive danger that her ideology forbids. Your confidence is a trauma response. This is the psychological equivalent of a crooked mirror at a carnival. It takes a virtue, Greg's rational confidence earned through correct work, and reflects it back as a symptom of pathology. The beauty of this maneuver, from the manipulator's perspective, is that it cannot be falsified. Any confidence Greg displays becomes evidence of trauma. Any humility he displays becomes evidence of internalized oppression. He is trapped either way. Every one of these slogans is a thought-terminating cliché. They do not invite reflection, they forbid it. They are linguistic padlocks on the mind, issued by an institution that claims to liberate. The wrong idea underneath. Beneath the slogans, beneath the therapeutic theater, beneath the academic costume, there is a single wrong idea. It is the load-bearing wall of the entire ideological structure. Remove it and the edifice collapses. The wrong idea. Subjective grievance is superior to objective fact. Therefore, the person with the loudest emotional reaction dictates reality. This is not merely an error. It is the inversion of civilization's epistemological foundation. From Aristotle to Aquinas to the modern scientific method, the Western tradition holds that truth is the alignment of mind with reality, that reality exists independently of our preferences. That evidence matters more than emotion, and that a claim is true or false regardless of who makes it or how it feels to hear it. Dr. Wynona's ideology inverts this completely. In her system, reality is negotiated, not discovered. Facts are not found, they are co-created, and the most powerful person in the room decides what gets created. The professor's feelings are data. The student's logic is violence. Evidence is recoded as oppression. Due process is recoded as patriarchy. The entire apparatus of rational inquiry, the rubric, the syllogism, the appeal to objective standards, is reclassified as a weapon that must be disarmed. Notice the power move embedded in this inversion. If truth is subjective, then whoever controls the definition of harm controls reality. And who controls the definition of harm? The person with institutional power and the correct ideological credentials. The ideology does not eliminate hierarchy. It replaces merit-based hierarchy with grievance-based hierarchy, where the most aggrieved person is the most powerful and the most competent person is the most suspect. This is why the ideology is unfalsifiable. If you disagree, your disagreement proves you are either a victim of false consciousness if you belong to a designated group, or an oppressor defending privilege if you do not. There is no evidence that could change the ideologue's mind, because the act of presenting evidence is itself reclassified as a symptom of the disease the evidence addresses. The wrong idea is not merely wrong, it is self-sealing. It immunizes itself against correction, and that is precisely why it must be named, exposed, and dismantled piece by piece, without mercy and without apology. The inversions. The rant performs a series of precise inversions, each one a satanic reversal of a natural order principle, disguised as compassion or justice. The word satanic is used here in its precise theological sense, adversarial, inverting, turning reality upside down. The satanic does not announce itself as evil, it announces itself as liberation. It always comes bearing gifts. The box is beautifully wrapped. The contents are poison. Truth into harm. Greg states a correct syllogism. Dr. Wynona calls it epistemic violence. She has recoded the act of speaking truth as an act of assault. This is not a metaphor. In the semantic universe she inhabits, violence has been stretched to include any statement that causes emotional discomfort. Once truth is reclassified as violence, censorship becomes self-defense. The censor can pose as the protector. The silencer can claim heroism. Meanwhile, the actual violence against Greg's grade, his reputation, his right to due process, is invisible because it has no name in the approved vocabulary. Justice into envy, Greg earns an A. Dr. Winona gives him an A-, then a C-, not because his work changed, but because her feelings changed. She calls this dismantling patriarchy. It is not. It is envy wearing the mask of justice. Justice gives each person what they have earned. Envy takes what another has earned and calls it redistribution. The ideology laundering envy as equity is the oldest trick of the resentful. If I cannot rise to your level, I will drag you down to mine and call it fairness. Care into control. I love you enough to tell you this. I'm only telling you this because I care about your healing. This is the signature phrase of the therapeutic tyrant. Real care nurtures autonomy. It teaches the student to stand on his own reason even against the teacher. Dr. Winona's care demands dependence. It insists Greg surrender his attachment to objectivity and replace it with submission to her subjective authority. She calls it healing. It is capture. Freedom into license. Dr. Winona claims to offer liberation from patriarchal reason. What she actually offers is the license to redefine words at will, to penalize without evidence, and to call coercion compassion. True freedom is the capacity to choose the good within the constraints of natural law. License is the rejection of all constraint, including the constraint of truth. The ideology does not liberate. It licenses tyranny disguised as empathy. Mercy into due process abolition. By pre-grading the class and announcing that Greg's grade reflects her emotional state rather than his work, Dr. Winona has abolished the rule of law in her classroom. There is no known standard, there is no appeal, there is no rubric. There is only her whim, dressed in the language of restorative justice. Mercy requires a known law against which clemency can be granted. When law itself is abolished, what remains is not mercy, it is despotism. Love into possession. Dr. Winona says she loves Greg. What she loves is his compliance. She loves him as an extension of her ego, a student who reflects back her brilliance and never challenges her authority. When he demonstrates independent thought, her love instantly curdles into punishment. This is not love. Love wills the good of the other as other. It honors the separateness of the beloved's mind. Dr. Winona's love consumes, it does not honor. Each inversion is a theft. Something real and good, truth, justice, care, freedom, mercy, love is stolen, hollowed out and worn as a costume by its opposite. The costume is convincing, the wearer is not. Undoing the spell. A spell is a closed linguistic system that forbids exit by redefining exit as sin. To undo the spell, you must break its grammar, refuse its definitions, demand evidence it cannot provide, and restore the distinction it has deliberately collapsed. Restore the harm, offense, distinction. Dr. Winona calls Greg's logic violence. Ask the forensic question. What physical injury occurred? What property was damaged? What material deprivation did Greg inflict? The answer, none. Greg spoke a correct syllogism. That is offense at most emotional friction, not material injury. Harm requires a victim with measurable loss. The professor's bruised ego is not a tort. Once you hold this line, offense is not harm. The spell weakens. The entire ideological vocabulary depends on conflating the two. Refuse the conflation. Restore the intent-impact distinction. Impact over intent sounds compassionate until you test it. If a surgeon accidentally nicks an artery during life-saving surgery, the impact is severe. Is the surgeon a criminal? No, because intent matters. The entire Western legal tradition distinguishes between manslaughter and murder, between negligence and malice, between accident and assault. Stripping intent from evaluation does not produce justice. It produces a regime where the most reactive person holds the most power, and the most careful person lives in permanent fear. Restore the objective standard. Dr. Winona calls the rubric a weapon. It is not, it is a contract, a public pre-committed standard that binds both parties. The professor cannot change the grade arbitrarily. The student cannot demand an unearned mark. The rubric protects the weak against the arbitrary power of the strong. This is the entire point of rule of law. The law rules, not the ruler. When Dr. Winona disarms the rubric, she does not disarm a weapon. She disarms a shield, Greg's shield. Restore the agency's symmetry. In Dr. Winona's system, Greg is fully responsible for his impact on her. She is not responsible for her reaction to him. He is an agent, she is a reactor. This is not empowerment. It is infantilization dressed as liberation. Restore the symmetry. Both parties possess agency. Both are responsible for their words and actions. If Greg's syllogism causes harm, then Dr. Winona's public humiliation of him, lowering his grade, diagnosing his psychology, threatening further punishment causes harm squared. Apply the same standard to both. Watch the ideology collapse. Restore the question. The spell forbids questions. If you argue with me, you are proving my point. This is the closed loop of every cult, every kangaroo court, every totalitarian catechism. The antidote is the stubborn, relentless question. By what standard, what evidence would change your mind? Who defined these terms? Who benefits from this definition? The ideology cannot survive sustained questioning because it is not built on evidence. It is built on assertion, repetition, and the institutional power to punish dissent. Restore the logos. The logos is the rational principle that orders reality, the grammar of existence itself. It is older than any ideology. It precedes the academy, the HR department, the DEI office, the Title IX bureaucracy, and the entire apparatus of modern soft totalitarianism. The logos says, truth exists, it can be known, it can be spoken. It is worth defending. Dr. Winona's entire rant is a war against the logos, a war to replace reason with emotion, evidence with accusation, and merit with compliance. The way to undo the spell is not to match her emotion with emotion. It is to stand on reason and refuse to move. Back to natural order. What does restoration look like? Not nostalgia, not reaction. Order. Truth is the alignment of mind with reality. It exists independent of the speaker's identity, feelings, or institutional position. A syllogism is correct or incorrect regardless of who utters it. A grade measures mastery of the subject, not compliance with the professor's emotional needs. The classroom exists to transmit knowledge, not to enforce ideological conformity. This is not opinion. This is the natural order of education, the telos of the institution itself. Justice gives each person what they have earned. It is blind to identity. It weighs evidence, not grievance. It applies the same standard to all. If Greg's syllogism is correct, he earns the corresponding grade. If the professor cannot defend her assessment on the merits, she has failed. Not Greg, but her office. Justice does not redistribute achievement to soothe insecurity. It honors achievement because honor is what achievement deserves. Due process is the architecture of civilization. Without it, power is raw and unaccountable. The rubric is a miniature constitution. The appeal is a miniature trial. The presumption of innocence is a miniature Magna Carta. Strip these away, and Dr. Winona's ideology demands exactly that. And what remains is the law of the jungle, dressed in academic robes. Family is the basic unit of civilization. The ideology that calls fatherhood patriarchal domination, that calls the nuclear family oppressive, that calls sex difference a social construct, that calls chastity repression, that calls natural law bigotry. This ideology is not reforming the family. It is dismantling the infrastructure of human flourishing. The family is where children learn order, duty, love, sacrifice, and the transmission of inheritance. Every ideology that attacks the family attacks civilization at its root. Virtue is the habit of choosing the good. It is not a feeling. It is not a slogan. It is forged through discipline, corrected through community, and tested through adversity. The four cardinal virtues, prudence, justice, fortitude, temperance, are not inventions of dead white men. They are descriptions of the human soul in proper working order. The three theological virtues, faith, hope, and love, are not escapes from reality. They are orientations toward the highest reality. A civilization that forgets these does not progress. It decays. Duty is the shape of freedom. A man free from all duty is not free, he is abandoned. Freedom is the capacity to choose your duties and then fulfill them, to bind yourself to truth, to family, to craft, to community, to God, and to let those bonds order your life. The ideology that calls all duty oppression does not liberate, it orphans. It produces a room full of Gregs, stripped of standards, dependent on the professor's approval, unable to stand on their own reason. Natural order is not imposed from above. It is recognized from within. It is the grain of the universe. Stand against it, or align with it. Those are the only options. The question that ends it. Every closed system has a pressure point, a question it cannot answer without dissolving. Dr. Wynona's system has one. Ask it. Ask it calmly. Ask it in front of witnesses. Ask it, and then sit back and watch the architecture shudder. If Greg's grade is based on his impact on you, and you change your mind tomorrow, does his work change, or does your ego? She cannot answer. If she says his work changes, she has admitted that grading has no relationship to merit, which means her entire profession is fraud. If she says her ego changes, she has admitted that the standard is her feeling, which means Greg's grade was never about Greg at all. It was about her. That is the confession hidden inside every ideological rant. It is never about justice. It is never about safety. It is never about care. It is always about power, the power to redefine words, to invert standards, to punish the competent for being competent, and to call the punishment virtue. The question ends it because it restores the one thing the ideology cannot survive: accountability to reality. Once that question is asked in a seminar, in a boardroom, in a family court, in a church, in a legislature, the spell loses its grip, the rhetorical fog clears, the inversion becomes visible, and the logos, patient and immovable, reclaims its throne. Define before debate, separate harm from offense, demand evidence, refuse collective guilt, expose unfalsifiable claims, hold the line. Truth makes men better, not just angrier. Field manual. Card 1, the impact trap. Q. She claims your factual statement caused harm, demands apology, and insists her emotional reaction is the measure of your guilt. Wrong idea, feelings are evidence. Discomfort is injury. The most wounded person wins. Inversion. Truth becomes violence. Logic becomes assault. Evidence becomes cruelty. Her fragility is your felony. Question. If your words are judged by her feelings and not their accuracy, then truth is whatever she decides. So why should anyone believe her accusations either? Restoration. Harm is material deprivation of life, liberty, or property. Offense is not injury. Intent determines moral culpability. Truth is the mind's alignment with reality, not its compliance with mood. Never accept a standard that makes her weather your fall. Card 2, the lived experience veto. Q. She waves away your data, your syllogism, your documented pattern with, "You can't know because you haven't lived it." Wrong idea. Identity credential determines epistemic authority. Anecdote trumps aggregate. Pain is a passport to infallibility. Inversion. Subjectivity becomes sovereignty. The fewer who can challenge her, the more true her claim. Experience is weaponized as an unexaminable verdict. Question. If her experience is final authority, then so is yours. So the argument collapses into two private revelations with no arbiter. How does she propose to settle anything? Restoration. Experience is data, not conclusion. Test every anecdote against the pattern. A single story is a sample, not a proof. Truth requires independent verification. No identity confers immunity from cross-examination. The standard that silences you today will silence her tomorrow. Card 3, the mansplaining silencer. Q. You present a structured argument. She interrupts. Stop mansplaining. The room freezes. Argument over. Wrong idea. Your demographic profile determines whether your argument deserves a hearing. Confidence in a man is inherently dominance. Inversion merit becomes oppression. Rational clarity becomes aggression. The content of your reasoning is erased by the category of your body. Question: if she rejects your argument because you are male, how is that different from the prejudice she claims to oppose? She is using identity to silence, not to liberate. Restoration. Ideas are judged by their correspondence to reality, not the identity of the speaker. Free speech exists precisely for unpopular voices. Critique the argument, not the anatomy. If the rule can't sex swap, it isn't justice, it's privilege wearing a halo. Card 4. The safe space sovereignty. Q. A classroom, boardroom, or church becomes a safe space. Your question is flagged as harmful. You're escorted out or quietly demoted. Wrong idea. Safety means no ideological discomfort. Learning environments must prioritize emotional protection over intellectual risk. Inversion. Education becomes therapy. Friction becomes trauma. The institution's mission shifts from truth-seeking to mood management. The most fragile person becomes the de facto curriculum director. Question: if the room is safe only for agreement, then what is being taught to the courage to face reality, or the choreography of performed fragility? Restoration. Real safety protects persons from violence, not egos from challenge. Intellectual safety means ideas can be tested without career destruction. The university is a forge, not a nursery. A culture that punishes inquiry has replaced education with indoctrination. Card 5. The patriarchy unfalsifiable. Q. You cite male suicide rates, workplace deaths, family court asymmetry, boys' educational collapse. She says, that's patriarchy backfiring on men. Wrong idea. Every outcome, male advantage or male suffering, confirms the same diagnosis. The system is always guilty. Men are always responsible. Inversion. Male victimization is reframed as male privilege. The hypothesis absorbs all counter-evidence. No datum can disprove it because every datum is reinterpreted as proof. Question: if patriarchy explains men winning and men losing, then what would count as evidence against it? A theory that explains everything explains nothing. Restoration. A legitimate theory is falsifiable. State what evidence would disprove it. Compare across societies, across eras. If men are systematically disadvantaged in specific domains, courts, education, health funding, suicide, then the simple male privilege narrative is insufficient. Apply symmetry. Truth survives the test. Ideology fears it. Card 6. The toxic masculinity capture. Q. She condemns stoicism, ambition, competition, and physical courage as toxic masculinity. Then in the next breath demands men be more vulnerable. Wrong idea. Masculine strengths are inherently oppressive. The ideal man is feminized. Virtue is whatever opposes the traditional male coding. Inversion. Strength becomes pathology. Discipline becomes repression. Protective aggression becomes abuse. Men are told to dismantle their nature, then despised for lacking it. Question: if stoicism is emotional repression and vulnerability is demanded but punished when performed, what exactly is the approved male emotional register? The goalposts move to keep you wrong. Restoration. Distinguish between vice, violence, exploitation, cowardice, and virtue. Courage, discipline, responsibility, self-mastery. Toxic behavior is toxic in anyone. Healthy masculinity is the backbone of civilization. Men need models of strength under moral authority, not emasculation dressed as enlightenment. Nature is not a diagnosis. Detonating question: if your grade is based on your impact on me and I change my mind, does your work change or does my ego? One rule to carry: when the rant starts circling the room, when the professor's voice cracks, when the HR director leans forward, when the acronym salad hits the table, do not chase the emotion. Let it spin. Then reach into the center and pin one word to the wall. Define harm. Watch what happens. The animated corpse of the dialectic will twitch because you have done the one thing the system cannot survive. You have made language mean something again. The whole theater collapses the instant a single man refuses to accept that words are whatever the most fragile person in the room needs them to be. That refusal is not cruelty, it is the first act of civilization. When you hear the accusation, listen for the confession. The person who screams that you are controlling is telling you she has lost control. The administrator who calls your question violent is admitting his answer is weak. The institution that frames your silence as aggression is revealing that its entire architecture cannot survive your speech. The projection is the map. Follow it back to their fear. Then name the inversion aloud clearly. Without rage, you have called evidence a weapon. That is not justice. That is envy wearing a safety vest. Say it once. Say it plainly. Then let the silence do what centuries of rhetoric were built to accomplish. Let the truth ring in a room that has forgotten the sound. Here is the rule I leave you. When the rant runs, make the words stand still, name the projection, call out the inversion, and restore the order that existed before the tantrum was mistaken for a philosophy. That order is not oppression. It is the architecture that lets men build, children grow, and language carry meaning heavier than a mood. Everything else is weather. You are the stone. Sponsored book. Master Your Decades. Time, relationships, career, emotions, fitness, balance, connections, masculinity. You're holding a manifesto for men who refuse to apologize for existing. My name's Conrad Riker. I spent my 20s as a beta cuck, chasing feminist validation, signing marriage certificates like a serf, signing away his land, and letting HR departments therapize my ambition into compliance. Then I woke up. At 33, divorced, financially gutted, and soft around the edges, I stumbled upon a truth. Modern society isn't designed to elevate men, it's built to castrate us. This book is the artillery I wish I'd had when the system first declared war on my manhood. The data doesn't lie. 92% of men die having contributed nothing to history beyond tax returns and DNA. Meanwhile, the gynocratic machine, from no-fault divorce courts to DEI. Commissars systematically dismantles male authority while demanding we fund its destruction. I rebuilt my life using the protocols in these pages, escaping the marriage plantation, turning Bitcoin into generational armor, and forging a physique that commands respect without uttering a word. You'll learn to weaponize evolutionary biology, not therapy speak, to dominate sexual markets. You'll discover why woke ideologies are psychological, AIDS, for male ambition, and how to inoculate yourself. This book isn't for everyone if you think toxic masculinity is real, that vulnerability rituals will make women desire you, or that your boss gives a damn about your work-life balance. Close this book now. Go binge Netflix while better men build empires. But if you're part of the 8% who'd rather leave a legacy than a LinkedIn profile, what follows is your playbook. We'll dissect Bezos's decade domination strategies, reverse engineer Musk's divorce-proof asset shields, and resurrect Spartan discipline in a world addicted to weakness. Time is your most lethal asset. Every second spent appeasing the gender police is a bullet wasted. The chapters ahead, from crushing the woke hydra to securing your bloodline, aren't self-help. They're a declaration of war against everything that's made you soft. Your ancestors didn't cross oceans or conquer continents by embracing vulnerability. They ruled. So will you, or you'll die as another statistic. The choice is binary. Choose wisely. Master your decades. Time, relationships, career, emotions, fitness, balance, connections, masculinity. Written by Conrad Riker. Buy now, links in description.